In this tutorial, we'll learn how to create a rainbow-colored text in Krita using filters and clipping masks. First, I'm going to make the background black, add a new vector layer, and then use the text tool to write some text. Then I'll click on this little square in the toolbar to change the foreground color, which will also change the color of the selected text. The color that I want is red, with 255 red, 0 green, and 0 blue. These values are a bit important for the method that we're going to use. Now I'll use the transform tool to resize the text. Hold shift while dragging the corners to lock the aspect ratio. I want this text to be centered on the canvas. To do this, go to Settings on the menu bar, Docker's submenu, and click on Arrange. This displays the Arrange Docker. This docker doesn't show anything by default. We need to select an object inside a vector layer first in order for it to work. Then we can click on this button to center it horizontally and on this button to center it vertically. Now that we have the text, the next step is to add a second vector layer. We'll add a rectangle to this vector layer and make its fill a gradient. To do this, go to the Tool Options docker while the rectangle is selected and change the fill to gradient. Double-click on a control point in the gradient to change its color. We want both colors to be pure red. Now that both colors are pure red, we'll make this gradient become transparent on one side. To do this in Krita, click on the left control point once to select it, then click on this menu button on the right side. This will display a drop-down menu. Click on Edit Stop. A dialog will appear that lets us edit the gradient stop. Here we can find the setting to change the opacity of the control point. Drag it to 0% to make it transparent. Now that the gradient is the color that we want, click and drag the gradient control points on the canvas to make it horizontal. Next, we're going to use the text layer as a clipping mask for the rectangle layer. If you don't know how to use clipping masks in Krita, I recommend watching a previous video I made covering the subject. I'll leave a link in the description. We'll place both layers into a group and then toggle the Inherit Alpha setting on the rectangle layer so it's masked to the text layer. Next, we're going to add a filter mask to the rectangle layer. The filter that we want is the cross-channel color adjustment filter. This filter modifies the values of a specified channel based on the values of a specified driver channel. Change the channel to hue and the driver channel to alpha. Now drag the right control point all the way to the top. Observe that this slowly adds hues to our gradient. Now we have our rainbow, but only on the right side. That's because the left side is still transparent. Let's fix that. Change the channel from hue to alpha. Observe that changing the channel doesn't reset the modifications we did to the other channel, which is a bit confusing, but it's the way this filter works. We'll just move both control points all the way to the top. This will maximize the alpha value of all pixels. It looks like we're finished, but unfortunately, Krita is a bit buggy. After we click OK, we'll see that there is a part on the left side that is pure black. Why did that happen? It was fine just a moment ago. When Krita's layers get bugged like this, usually hiding and displaying some layers fix it. My guess is that part of the program is optimized to skip rendering transparent pixels, which causes a problem when we use a filter to turn fully transparent pixels into opaque pixels. This is how the filter is actually supposed to look like. As you can see here, the rectangular area of the gradient where alpha is greater than 0% is being rendered as a rainbow, while areas with exactly 0% alpha are being rendered as black. In Krita and many other graphics software, when a pixel becomes fully transparent, its color is automatically set to black. This generally doesn't change anything because the pixel is fully transparent, so it doesn't really matter what the RGB color of the pixel is supposed to be. However, in rare cases like this, it creates a bit of a problem. Fortunately, we can fix this without even adding another filter. Let's reopen the filter properties of the filter mask that we added. Now, let's change the channel to lightness and maximize it. Observe that in areas that Krita properly refreshed, the black color has become white. Next, change the channel to saturation and maximize it. Now the color has become red. If we click OK, Krita finally refreshes the whole canvas properly, and we can mask this to the text layer again. It's still bugged, so let's hide and display again. There you go, now it's working. Now that we have our rainbow-colored text, you could simply save this if you wanted to, but I want to take this opportunity to teach a couple more rainbow-related things. You may have noticed this before, but colors like yellow and cyan are brighter than colors like blue and red. That's because the RGB color model doesn't match the way humans perceive brightness. 255 red is less bright than 255 green, but more bright than 255 blue. There's a technique that we can use to create a rainbow with constant perceptual brightness. You can see here that our text layer has a text with the color red, We're going to use the brightness of this red through the entire rainbow. To do this, we'll select the rainbow layer and then change its blend mode. The blend mode that we want is in the HSY category, and it's called hue. This blend mode changes the hue of the bottom layer while retaining its saturation and luma. As you can see here, the parts of the rainbow that are red still look very red, but parts that aren't red have become much darker. That's because their luma is typically greater than red, so when we make the luma constant, they become much darker. Next, I'm going to select the text layer and change its color using the color wheel, and I'm going to do this while the rainbow is visible. Observe that changing the hue of the text on the color wheel appears to change the brightness of the rainbow. That's because it needs to use the same luma across the entire rainbow. For example, yellow is a very bright color. If I make the text yellow, every other color in the rainbow will become much lighter. By contrast, if I make the text blue, then the blue colors appears correct, but every other color becomes too dark. Essentially, you want to find a color with a luma that looks well across all hues of the rainbow. If getting the right colors appears to be more difficult than it's supposed to be, that's because Krita is actually calculating the colors of the rainbow wrong. To fix this, we're going to change the color profile of the document from the default, which is a gamma-corrected color space, also called perceptual, to a linear color space, and that will change how the colors are calculated. To do this, click on Image on the menu bar and then on Convert Image Color Space. Here, what we want to do is change the color profile to a linear profile. Let's use the color space browser to take a look at what these profiles look like. You can see here that the default color profile has a curve in this graph. This curve represents a non-linear gamma. The profile that we want has a name that starts with sRGB and ends in G10, which stands for 1.0 gamma. This is the linear gamma. Another good option is the Rec 2020, which supports a wide gamut of colors. Unfortunately, there is a problem. If we change the color profile to a non-standard profile, we'll probably want to convert the image back to the standard profile when we export the image. If we do that, we're going to lose a bit of color data. To compensate for this, it's a good idea to change the color depth from 8-bit to 16-bit. When we change the color depth, Krita automatically selects a default linear color profile for us. After we select our profile, we can click on OK to convert the image. You can see here that the color of our rainbow has changed. It looks much more consistent than before. This is a bit awkward because we are using a luma-based blend mode, and if it worked the way I thought it was supposed to work, then we should have gotten the exact same color no matter which color profile we used. However, we can see that this isn't the case, which means Krita's luma-based blend modes simply do some basic math, under the assumption that it's operating in a linear color space. If we use them with other color spaces, we won't get the result that we want to get. The last trick that we'll learn is that we can actually use this filter mask to add rainbows to anything. Let's add a new paint layer and move it to the top of the layer stack. Now I'm going to select this soft airbrush here and paint on it. Observe that this stroke has soft edges. Now I'll drag the filter mask from our rectangle layer to our new paint layer. We have the rainbow now, but the whole canvas turned red, which is not what we want. We can fix this by going to the filter mask's properties and changing the way the alpha channel is modified. We're going to make alpha the driver channel for alpha. This will allow us to modify the way the paint fades to transparent. We'll move this control point to the left, almost all the way to the left. I'm just going to type the value 1 in this text box so that when alpha is 1%, it's immediately changed to 100%. Now you can see that we have a rainbow-colored stroke, but the background remains transparent. The fun thing about effects like this is that we can use them with any brush, including textured brushes. Suddenly, everything is producing a rainbow full of saturated colors, but we don't need to limit ourselves to paint and vector. Anything that produces an alpha gradient can be turned into a rainbow. Let's go back to our text layer and add a new filter mask to it. The filter that we want is Gaussian blur. We're going to make this text blurry. What blurry means in this case is that the alpha at the edges has become a gradient. This means that if we drag the rainbow filter mask on top of the gradient mask, we're going to make a rainbow out of the blurred areas of the text, creating this rainbow contour on the text. We can even customize the contour by adjusting how much Gaussian blur is being applied to the text. This is how you make a rainbow text effect in Krita. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment if you have any doubts, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more Krita tutorials.